So let's look at language and the red pill and how it changes language. So let's just take one simple term, very common term these days, migration, the immigration policy of the nation. And it's discussed and it's talked about, but it's really just a big blue pill that you're taking, because the truth is it is not an immigration policy like there was, 20, 30 years ago when maybe there was 50,000 people coming into the UK per year or such. The truth is, when you give it the correct language, it is a mass migration policy. It is, 500,000 people coming in, open borders, people just having every opportunity to come in all sorts of avenues that are really unvetted, unstructured, and so on. So it is essentially a mass migration policy. So instead of talking about an immigration policy, we need to be clear. This is a mass migration policy that's going on. For example, and this is facilitated through essentially open borders. For example, if you look at Ireland, there is no border between the north and the south. Anybody can come streaming into the country from the north of Ireland into the south through whatever avenue they make it here, and there's no record of them entering the country. Any number of people can do this, and so on. So it may be illegal, but mass migration is primarily a legal thing. It has been permitted legally. So just when people want to talk about the migration policy, just that is a massive blue pill. Drop the red pill and say, let's talk about what this is. This is a mass migration policy, and it's like 500,000 people, leaving the UK. Or no, sorry, 500,000 people coming into the UK from non-European countries, much of it, and then maybe 250,000, British citizens leaving. That's call that correctly. That's a population replacement policy, So I think it's important to call these things what they are, because it gets much more difficult for people to get the propaganda going when you do that. So that's the red pill. We have a mass migration policy across Europe. And then we say, well, okay, let's examine it. Let's look at the consequences. And they are horrific. Lower trust, incompatible cultures, huge degradation of the liberal democracy processes in many ways, huge threats to liberal democracy, huge threats to women and children, and the country's getting poorer as measured per capita. So this is the consequences of this policy. Let's just have an open talk about it. And when we have the blue pill, the press and the politicians and the media and the conversations we have with each other are very restricted to this incorrect understanding of things. And when we drop the red pill and say, let's talk about our mass migration policy, then you have let's have an open conversation about this in the press, and in the, obviously the mainstream media is pretty much bought up. So let's have an open conversation about this in the other places on the internet. And let's demand that our politicians talk about this and are accountable for this policy. So that would be the white pill. The white pill is simply to call it what it is and to demand open discussion and investigation into this national policy and its impact upon the nation. And let's bring it one step further. So a country without borders is no longer a country. It is simply a conquered land, or a soon-to-be conquered land, conquered by foreign powers that can now just kind of do whatever they want with the country because it has no borders, conquered by theocracy. If they want to just flood the country with numbers, they can do that. So it's important to realize that when we surrender our borders, and we are surrendering the nation. We are no longer a country, a nation that protects itself and looks after its women and children, and works to make its economy and has the social contract that a citizen has to the nation, and so on. All that stuff gets wiped away and replaced by really different forms of tyranny. So it's quite a terrible thing for it to happen to a country. And I think we should be honest about it. And then look, we can see the consequences already are devastating. In no way any good. What are the alternatives? Well, there are plenty of alternatives, Dubai, for example, is a great way to manage, if you have a lower population, you can have lots of people come into the country, work, and then they leave when they've done their work and they benefit from it and they can learn about this great Western liberal democracy and their culture, and we can help them bring that to their cultures. So there's lots of white pills as well. But we got to stop pretending this is an immigration policy. It is a mass migration policy. And that is devastating to the nation and ultimately destroys the nation. And we can talk about the forces that want this to happen and the benefits from that. But that's it. It is a mass migration policy, and it destroys nations. And there you go. Let's start talking about what's really going on. Let's stop accepting the blue pill, and as if there's something wrong with actually questioning it and calling it what it is. Let's take the red pill and call it what it is, and then let's go further than that and take the white pill and start saying, how do we have solutions to this? Well, we restore the sanity. You know, we restore things to when we had nations that weren't so weak and a threat, and we had really good systems in place. For migration that made sense, and integration and development and all these things. And we've gone astray, so we just need to restore back to a system. Like a reset on a computer. If it went astray, just reset back to when things are much better. So make sure you have borders. Make sure the citizens realize if we don't have borders, you'll no longer be a citizen. You will be a conquered land as pretty soon. So yeah, that's my little red pill for the night.